So I look intelligent. Wow.
No, no, no. Only if you cannot see, which is why I have these on. Yeah, a close up. It's just it really runs together. So I gotta have these jokers on. All right, so we are live, which is the most important thing because I don't want to forget to record us like I did before. And give me 1 second. I'm going to intro us. I'm going to let you guys intro yourselves, a little bit as well, and then we'll get into the content. Does anybody have a curfew?
No, but I might have an interruption because
Okay.
I said
You
it
saw
was.
me just go close my door. I heard my
Oh, okay.
dogs decide
Yeah,
they want to come down here, so I went and
yeah.
closed my door. So all right, here we go. Hey guys, welcome into Things You Should Know podcast. My name's Kelly. I'm your host. As always, it is my pleasure to welcome you into another podcast. Today is going to be a very interesting show, so I want you to stick around all the way to the end. We've got two guests that are coming back today. They've been here before, and you've liked them both, according to the multiple downloads that I see on the stream. I hope everybody's having a good day, have had a good week, a good month, and certainly are having a good year. If you've not done so already, it's a great time to go ahead now and subscribe to the podcast. No matter where you're listening to us, whatever platform you're listening to us on, we're on most all platforms for podcasts. So today we're going to talk relationships, and we're going to be spontaneous in doing so. I thought it'd be a good thing to do, ask our experts, our relationship experts, what they would do in these situations. And just so you know, they've not really seen any of these questions. So we're going to get their feedback very spontaneously. So, for example, in relationships, we bid for what we call emotional connections by asking questions that can range from the mundane to even soul searching questions. As you know, we do our research here and we've looked at women's health and men's health magazines, and we pulled a lot of these questions that people ask in short term and long term relationships. This is marriage, this is just dating. So, for example, women may ask emotional connection questions with their girlfriends. How do you feel about it? How do you feel about it? How do you feel? Much different than men ask, for example, with their pals. Did you see that motorcycle? Did you see that? Now, with her question, or when her questions are asked to him, if it strikes a nerve, it's often because you're perceiving a disconnect in what she really wants to say. And that can come from both sides. This is according to Dr. Don Cole, who's a Houston based licensed marriage and family therapist certified by the Gottman Institute. But why? Why can her questions rile you up so easily? Your instinct to blow a gasket or to storm off is biological, according to him. Quote, men's bodies are hardwired to be hyper reactive to stress and danger, but modern danger is no longer a ferocious tiger. It, according to him, could be the pissed off wife or girlfriend. When she comes at you with touchy topics, your body sees danger, which involuntarily triggers your fight or flight response. To sail smoothly through any line of questioning, recommend we be ready with some smart answers, which has gotten us to this point today. So we're going to ask our coaches, our therapists today, some of the same questions that are listed in these articles, and let's have some fun. Let's see what they say. Of course, our goal here is always to empower through information. We want you, if any of these questions are hindering you in your relationship, obviously to take their information seriously, maybe employ some of the solutions to see a different result. So today we have back with us Miss Giovanna Gathers. Miss Giovanna has been with us before. She is a clinical psychotherapist and has a lot of experience from health and wellness into relationship and a multitude of different types of counseling. I'm going to let her expand on that. Welcome to the podcast, Miss Giovanna.
Thank you so much, Kelly. And always a pleasure. So excited to be here tonight and see what you have for us, what questions you're going to throw at us. And I know we're going to handle it though. But thank you for that intro as well. As you said, I am a licensed psychotherapist in the state of South Carolina and Georgia. I'm a clinical and a business coach, as well as international speaker. I am a two-time author. I am a mother. I am a wife, in addition to probably 10 other things that aren't even relevant tonight. But
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
definitely stay busy. But again, I just, I count it all joy. I think it's just a blessing to be able to do what you love and love what you do.
Excellent. Well, thank you for being with us and for helping us out with this topic. I believe the audience is really going to enjoy this. And also back with us is Mr. Elam King, relationship coach. I think the last time, Elam, we were together, we were talking about relationships and what happened over COVID, for example. And there was a lot of interest online for that. A lot of folks downloaded that. So welcome back, Elam.
Hey, so first of all, thank you so much, Kelly, for even having me on the show. And Miss Giovanna, it is amazing to just even be able to stand next to you as well. Loving what you're doing out here. And anyone who is looking to further in the side of the relationship space, absolutely love it. But so located here in Atlanta, Georgia, I am a author as well. And my space more involves around, working with couples, whether it's dating, whether it's marriage, whether it's pre-marriage, and just really working to kind of change some of these stats that exist out here from a divorce and just a breakup of family perspective. And my mantra really is that in order for us to improve these communities, we really need to work on our families. In order to work on our families, we really need to speak to the two main people that are a part of that, which is the man and the woman. So just out here wanting to share as much information as possible. So again, thank you for having me on.
Well, thanks, guys. And let's jump straight into it. So, uh, folks, listeners, this is how we're going to do this. I've got some questions here I'm going to ask our panelists. And these first few questions, I just want to get your natural responses to. So, again, these articles one is from menshealth.com, the other is from womenshealth.com. And as we do here, these are scientific, meaning people were actually asked, there were studies done. This is not someone's opinion. This is actual information that's come back through actual study. So the reason that's important is because, for example, if you are going to run a Google ad and you want to target a certain audience, you want to get to statistics that tell you if selling glow sticks during December is good or not. How would you know that? Well, Google knows because they can tell you how many people searched that in the month of December and how many people bought them. You don't want to sell a product that people are not searching for. So here we want to make sure you understand this information is valid. And I believe that many of you may be asking the same questions in your relationship. Hence, if we can get you an answer, we can provide you some assistance. So number one, the first question, this is from a woman to a man, and the question is very simple. It says, do you love me? Now, according to Men's Health, the reason they say this freaks men out is when a man asks validating, seeking questions, it's her biological programming, hungering for reassurance that her man does love her enough to stick around for the long haul. So, panelists, Miss Giovanna, we'll start with you. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I don't think it's maybe indicative of all women. Certainly, I think if there has been some questions, if there have been some reason for her to wonder or to question the uh, uh, security and the stability of the relationship, then I certainly can see a woman asking those types of questions. I'm thinking, and I'm almost laughing because I'm like, I'm sure I've asked my husband that, but not necessarily for validation. I feel like I look more at his actions for validation.
Mhm.
I know that from my experience that men are about action. So I look at what he does. I look at how he speaks his love language to me. So when I ask, it's more or less like joking. So I don't think it puts him on alert or alarms him or anything like that. And because normally he jokes right back with me, but I think that certainly there are women that aren't sure because I mean, let's face it, a lot of times women have ended the relationship under, the wrong intentions, or
Right.
they have overlooked a lot of red flags. They have made a lot of concessions and a lot of excuses. And so their asking really is more or less, in my opinion, because, is he going to say yes and prove me, you know, wrong so much, meaning that is he going to say yes because I'm already questioning whether he really does or not. So if he says yes, then that puts my fears at ease, but if he says no, then I have been intuiting everything correctly, like my worst fears are coming true. So I
Right.
think a lot of women are playing head games with that. Like I said, they've seen the red flags, they know that there are some things that are not clicking, and maybe that his words aren't lining up with his actions. And so they're really just trying to pick for information.
Right. Mr. King, do you love me question? Why would that freak us out as men?
Why would that freak us out?
Do you
I,
agree? I guess I should say that. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
no, but I'm
According
I'm
to
gonna
this
I'm
guy.
gonna go both angles on that. The
Okay.
first thing I'm gonna say, just to throw a lifeline to women of some of the reasons why that this happens. I mean, I always say that men listen to the things that women say, and echoing the point of Giovanna, but women watch the things, the actions that men do. And so, from a biological perspective, it's automatically placed inside of a woman. They're the selectors.
Mm,
Okay. And from a hormonal, excuse me, from a biological perspective, their goal is to select the best sperm that can, be with them and, provide for their future. Right. So if you're
right.
looking to have somebody to provide for your future, you want to make sure you select the best person, and you want that person to love you and want to be with you for for the right reasons. So the question is really that portion is them. They're doing a selection. Hey, am I about to select the person that's going to love me and carry me forward into this life? So
Mm,
I think that's a great thing. I also want to say that from a hormonal perspective. And this actually comes from a book from Dr. Luann Brizendine, when she speaks about just the hormones, and in a book that she wrote called The Female Brain, and then also in another book of The Upgrade. So in that space, she's speaking about estrogen, which obviously is a hormone that we know that women have, right?
mm,
Along with it doing all the biological things and babies and stuff like that, estrogen actually brings a woman to the space of wanting to connect, right? From a communication perspective. That's why, for example, Kelly, you and I, we're not going to just get a bottle of wine and sit in the living room and just talk about, just how our day or how are the kids or whatever. We're not going to do that, or sit on the bed, lay on the bed together and just watch TV and talk about. But Giovanna probably has done that at some point with maybe some of her peoples, right?
right.
So but there's there's a connection that exists there, camaraderie, that just the natural hormone that is more prevalent inside of their system, that brings that level of connection together. So that's why sometimes us as men, we can't understand it, because obviously we have more of a testosterone dominant, right?
Right.
Which is more of a standalone and warrior and all that good stuff situation. So I think that also has a lot to do with it. So you have the biological aspect, and then just also the subculture that exists in there, that kind of goes along with both of those, that
Right.
brings more of a camaraderie and conversation with women versus men. More of the subculture that exists there is to be, unfortunately, disconnected from your feelings. And so
Right.
when Giovanna comes along and asks that question, we're like, huh? Like, really? I don't even know how I feel, but here you come with that question,
Right.
So
Yeah. Well, you know what? Thank you both for that. As I was reading through this article, I believe in some form or fashion. I've been married, it'd be 25 years in September. I've been asked all of these questions. And in fairness, I've asked some of them as well. And I think for me, it would just depend on where you are as in terms of your frame of mind and who you are. Elam, you and I talked in our last podcast, and you were asking me questions, and I would give you three answers because I gave you answer from my 20-year-old self, my 30-year-old self, and my current self. All those were just different people.
Different people, yeah.
They were different people. So I can see where a guy would, I don't know if I would freak out at any age. Maybe if I was really young and that I really read that wrong. But do you love me at this stage in my life? I agree with you both. I can see where you both got your answers. But here's another question. Here's another question. Can you talk to our kid? Can you talk to our daughter about a grade that she got in school today? Can you talk to them about this? Now, the reason they're saying this would perturb a guy or maybe freak the guy out, and we were going to get to the women part as well, is because this is an implication that you wouldn't have thought to do it on your own, which in turn threatens your standing as a parent. So can you talk to our kid about this grade? People are relatively sensitive to tones of voice. So they're saying if they hear whoever's asking this can be a woman as well. If the man is saying it to the woman or the woman is saying it to the man, the husband, it doesn't really matter. If they hear an inflection, a negative inflection, in this case, they're talking about the guy, this question is often delivered maybe from a frustrated parent because they're seeking the to employ the father to do this. He may get defensive. What do you guys think about that? Let's start with Mr. Elam on this one. So your wife has come to you and said, listen, I need you to do this. Would you agree with this writer? Would you be offended? Do you think that you would feel like she's saying that perhaps you haven't done this and you were not thinking about doing it, and would this threaten you in any way?
I'm gonna be like, what? I don't feel like I don't feel like dealing with that right now. That's the reaction, and let me tell you why I say that on purpose. That would be the real reaction, but there is through research, one of the things that I've learned is that the level of multitasking that women have is phenomenal versus a man. Again, I read this in that same book of Dr. Luann Brizendine, but women have the ability to be multifaceted way better than men. There's a book called Men Are Like Waffles and Women Are Like Spaghetti. And so if you think about a plate of spaghetti, right? You look at one noodle and you travel down that noodle, right? And that noodle, when you get to the end of it, it's connected to another noodle and then another noodle. Every noodle is connected, right? That is the way that a woman's mind works. And we have to think about it. We normally think that somebody else thinks the way that we think. And so in order for us to improve as we move forward inside of the relationship space, we have to understand that your spouse's or your significant other's brain does not even operate like yours. So when you're like, how did you, just like women think, I think there was a meme a long time ago. It had Boris Cujo and who's the one he married to? Nicole. Yeah. And so they were in the car, and above her head, she had like 20 bubbles, like go to the store, kids, dry cleaning, dinner, whatever, right? And above the guy's head, it was fitness, like workout or something. It was just one thing, right? And so that's just, people look at that like, you guys don't know. Wait, listen. Mother Nature designed us like this. And so when I say that women are like spaghetti, well, then men are like waffles. Let's look at a waffle. And you have those little squares that are in there. Men compartmentalize things, right? So why does that matter? We do one amazing thing at a time, right? And so, lady, Giovanna might be thinking, Elam, how can you not just do multiple things? Because my brain can do all that. And I'm over here like, I'm dealing with the electric bill. You know what I'm saying? So why do I say that? When you come to me about the grade, I'm like, okay, well, the grade is important and my kid is important, but I might be trying to do this. So I'm on this box, and now you want me to put this box down, and I kind of don't even want to do that to pick up the box that you're putting in front of me. So the question and the information makes sense, right? We're talking about, the kid or whatever, but I might not be ready to jump into that box. Therefore, I might lash out thinking that you're just bothering me right now. And really, there's just a lack of understanding of where we are.
Okay. All right. That's fair. Miss Giovanna.
So I think before I answer, it's always I look at the context of myself. And I honestly I feel like he and I are kind of on the same page. Like, if I had to ask him to speak to our daughter, for one, I've been with him 15 years. I kind of know when to ask. And I think that's one thing that a lot of women sometimes don't understand is timing, and
Right.
about when to ask certain questions and the appropriate timing and to get the attention and to get the best response. So, being after 15 years, I kind of know when not to, and therefore I know when to. So for me, when I would ask, I mean, he'd be right there. Like, that's just, we just tag team in that way. But I certainly can see how, and I agree, women are multitaskers. I always joke and say we can be driving the car, talking to our girlfriend, whipping somebody
Yes.
in the back, giving somebody the finger, and all at the same time and not miss a
Yeah.
beat. Whereas for me, and as you said, you all tend to focus on one thing at a time. I always joke and tell my husband, like, I forgot you can't walk and chew gum at the same time because
Real.
if he's doing, and he's an engineer, so even more so, if he's doing one thing and I start asking a question, and especially if it's a multi-layered question, then I know I've lost him after the second point. So again, just over time, I've learned how his brain operates to a certain extent, and so therefore I kind of pose my questions in that way. But I definitely think that for women, I would just say it's about the timing a lot, and it's about how we communicate, our tone, how we ask that question. Because
Yeah.
obviously, for us as women, if we put a certain tone to it, it's going to come across completely different to a man, and it's going to be almost like an accusation, which is going to put him in a defensive posture. But I think if you just ask, hey, did you the school called today, and what do you think about us sitting down talking to her? Let me know when is a good time for you. Then I think that might be taken a little bit better than when are you going to talk to your daughter? Because I think, again, that just automatically puts people on the defensive. And likewise, if that were a woman, I think it would put a woman on the defensive. If the husband came in and
Sure.
said, when are you going to talk to our daughter, or you need to talk to our daughter about her grade, I think that could put anybody on the defensive. So I just think it's how you approach it and how you deliver it that makes the difference.
Okay. That's great. That's great advice. So it could go either way.
Mhm.
And we're warming up, so we're going to get into some really significant questions here. But I'm trying to warm us up a little bit
Yeah.
because I wanted to give.
I got something, Kelly, I want to say real quickly.
Okay,
I just
go
want
ahead.
to echo Giovanna's point about the timing. And I think that's where she spoke wisdom there. So I want to highlight that. That's everything. So it's not that her husband doesn't have those same squares. She's
Right.
Mhm.
recognized that. She's like, this is not the time, instead of 8 o'clock, she knows to do it at 9:30
Right.
Yeah,
or 8:30 the next day or whatever, or early in the morning before maybe the child goes back to school, whatever. Because the point and the topic is important, right?
oh
Right.
yeah, yeah,
But just because it's their grade, we can't expect that the other person is just gonna, oh, let me drop everything and just go do this. It
yeah,
sounds good,
Yeah.
yeah,
but I think that timing, that wisdom that you have there, Giovanna, that's
Mhm.
so key. If I just wanted to accentuate that moment that
yeah.
she said.
Well, you both really hit on something. Your piece was, we do not think alike, and we have
Mhm.
to be aware of that and acknowledge that. It's not like that's going to change. We have to work with that fact. And of course, Vonnie's piece, I totally agree with. But it's something else that you said that sits with me also is that you had a sense of when to do that. And that doesn't happen after
Right,
30, 60, 90 days of being with
right.
someone.
No.
Doesn't.
You have a sense, "Oh, okay, this is not the right time to broach this subject." And so for our short timers, folks who've been in relationships for a very short time, I think, and I want to speak for our panelists, but I would encourage you as a 25-year person to just take your lumps and move through some of these discussions because it may be uncomfortable at first, but you will get your footing.
You'll
It doesn't
find
happen overnight.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Miss Bonnie. You were gonna say
I was
something?
just gonna say you'll find your rhythm. Like, I didn't know this in the first, as you said, 30, 60, 90 days. It took really trial and error, but me also paying attention, because I think a lot of times too, what we do as women is we don't realize sometimes that it's just about the timing and not about him not thinking it's important, or him not wanting to hear from me, or I'm nagging him, and it's
Right.
really just a timing issue. And so I try to educate a lot of women on that. Like sometimes you just gotta be, you gotta read the room, right? You
Yeah.
gotta look and know, like if he's
Right.
frustrated about something, or he's in the middle of the game or the fight, that is not the time to go in there and want
No.
to have a deep discussion. Or if he's sleepy at night, or if he's cranky or something, not good timing. And so it's not just that they don't want to hear it or that you're aggravating them. It's just you didn't choose a good time to present that. So, but again, I didn't know that in the
Yeah.
beginning.
In
So
the
it
beginning.
took me just learning and implementing what I was learning instead of using that as a point of contention. Well, you don't this and you don't that. No, I just looked and learned. Okay,
Sure.
not good timing. Let me adjust and work on better timing. And again, as you know, now we know each other, so I kind of know exactly when to
Right.
go ask. But that, you know, it's still not perfect. There are times when it's still like, babe, can we talk about this later? And I'm like, okay, sure. Let me know when is a good time. And then I move on. I don't take it personally. I don't get offended. I just move on until I feel like he's ready to discuss it.
Yeah, I was going to ask a different question, follow it, but this is a rich, some rich soil. So this is what I'll say, and I'm going to ask you guys this: what role, and from a man's side, or even from a woman's side with her father, what role does your partner's relationship with their parent play in a question like this? Let me explain further. For me, it took me a while to understand that my relationship with my mom really influenced the way that I dealt with my wife. How? Well, I grew up without a father, and I heard my mom, God love her, she fussed all the time. And it became unbearable. And so when I got in a relationship and a woman started to fuss or to ask me a lot of questions back to back to back, I was like, exit, please. Where is the exit? And I didn't realize why until I got older. And it was because I heard so much of that when I was coming up. I didn't want to deal with that if I didn't have to. So, what are your thoughts on that? We started off with the question, but we're going a little bit deeper. And this is for folks who maybe are taking their lumps right now and they're trying to figure out how to broach their partner about things. And maybe this is a deeper way to do it. Figure out what the relationship is with the parent. What do you think, Ms. Vonnie?
So for me, I think I'm like a natural problem solver. And so therefore, I can honestly say I'm sure I probably fussed in the beginning, not meaning to, but just when you're not feeling heard. For a woman, the tendency is just use more words.
Right.
And sadly for most men, you've already kind of shut down and you're not hearing anything. And so I think for me, I figured that out. Like my goal is to be heard. My goal is to at least get my point across, even if there was disagreement. And so how do I figure out the best way to do that? And if I do it fussing and he's shutting down, then I'm not meeting my goal. I'm not getting that
Right.
need met. So again, I can keep running into a brick wall expecting that it will fall at some point, but I'm going to have a bloody forehead at the end of that. Or I can approach that totally different. And so for me, it was, okay, Giovanna, if this isn't working, then you've got to figure out what does work. And so for my husband, again, like he's not a talker. I'm a talker. He's not a talker. On average, women talk way more than men. And so then you add in that most teachers are women. And so men kind of have women talking at them all the time. And because y'all aren't big talkers anyway, you use far less words than women. I think all that talk just sound, I always say it sounds like Charlie Brown, you know, the teacher.
Right.
That's a
Yeah.
great
You know,
analogy.
out as want will want. And so for me, I wanted my words to have impact. So therefore, I had to begin to choose carefully. And don't take this personally, but I also had to learn how to break things down. And again, not give a bunch of instructions all together. See, for women, we understand that. If I tell a woman, okay, girl, I'm gonna pick you up at 8 o'clock, make sure you got your red shoes on. And then after that, we're gonna go to Waffle House, and don't forget to bring your
Right.
crossbody bag, because that, remember, we're gonna spend the night at Sheila's and this and this and that. A man is like, huh? So for him, I kind of have to say, hey, babe, and say one thing at a time. And then it's like he's able to, to take that in better and act on that. So, but again, that was trial and error for me. So it was really just learning that. But I do think, to your question, you can look at how somebody grew up and with their parents. My husband grew up with both of his parents. I grew up without a father. So I really had to learn all this stuff. My mother
Yeah.
never remarried. And so I didn't get to really see her interacting a lot with men. So for me, it was just making a lot of mistakes and then figuring out how to correct those mistakes. Like I said, I'm a problem solver by nature. So this isn't working. I have to figure out something that works better. And so for me, that's what, kind of made the difference.
Okay. Good feedback. Elam, I saw you just was like you were holding it. And I know you got
I was twitching over here. I was like, "Oh my God, good!" I want to say this, man. I echo everything that I can call you Vonnie now. We friends now. Okay,
Kelly
Vonnie,
has
we
me up
good.
there as Giovanna, but he's gonna keep calling me Bonnie.
Yeah, I'm like, I know, Vonnie. Okay, we good. I echo everything that Vonnie just said, but I want to take this to a space that, in my marriage, some of the things that I ran into. Just one day, somebody was just like, Elam, you need to write a book, and I was just like, huh, write a book? I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. And so, fast forward, one of the things that I did inside of the 15 chapters that were in my book is that I addressed things from a space of, because my wife did not have a father figure in her life. And so June 23rd makes 50 years for my parents. So, I didn't even know, when it comes to blended families or whatever case it be, just or just look at generational curses, to whereas there was a repetitive space that existed on her side of men not being there, and now here I am. So how do you think that upbringing was? Everybody has curses, so you can't even point a finger at anybody's, right? Mine on the other side was fidelity, right? So everybody has them. So if you have one that's with your spouse or with yourself, I always ask, and I talk about this in my pre-marriage, of like, what exists inside of your family that there's a consistency. Perhaps you have whether it's men or women that are not able to communicate properly, and because that means, what do you think they grew up in? Seeing that lack thereof of communication, whether it's fussing, fighting, domestic violence, verbal domestic violence before the physical, right? Verbal and physical. So now you have that being passed on, and somebody looking at this, well, my mom cussed at my dad, so it's okay for me to cuss at you.
Yeah.
So so you have to, that is something that is important to look at, because who do girls fall in love with first? Their fathers. Who do boys fall in love with first? Their mothers. So we're kind of looking at the other person, of how that they conducted themselves. And so that is something. So to the point, it is important to know the level of upbringing from that person, because it might place them in a situation where there's a pattern that might move forward. So you want to kind of move in on that and attack that, and make sure that you're smoothing out those levels of communication, because it's not a question of if, but when it shows up, are you able to navigate your way through it?
Okay. All right. That's rich. So I could ask you more, but I want to, because I know these other questions are going to be just as fruitful. I want to get into them. So we kind of warmed up. We're going to get into the bed now. There's a article that was entitled 10 Questions Women Have Always Wanted to Ask Men and Find Out What Guys Really Think. And the first question is just that. What do men want? What do men want from women? This is a reader. Her name is Tina. She says, in quotes, "I'd love to know what men really want from women." She says, in bed, in life, in every day. But most importantly, she says she wants to know in bed. So taking that cue, I want to get more serious now about what affects couples day to day, emotions, vibrations, communication. We've already identified that men and women communicate differently. Women more, men less. Maybe even men less effective, but I don't think because we do it less that we're less effective, but maybe we are. I don't know. My experience is one thing, yours could be another. I know a lot of guys, not as many girls. And so my view, unfortunately, is slanted. I'm a father of two girls. So when they ask me advice, I can only give them what I have. So what we're going to give you tonight, though, is the perspective of both sides because we have Miss Vonnie here with us. And these are questions I think that folks are asking all the time in their relationships, and they're probably asking you guys when they book these consultations. So, number one, why doesn't he tell me everything?
I'm sorry.
Why? Like,
Elam, you taking
why
that first?
doesn't he tell me everything?
I was. Wait, are we live or is this pre-recorded?
This is live.
Recorded. This is
Mm-mm.
so people can see us right now. We're live.
Yeah.
Oh
Are we
wow.
really live?
I,
Oh,
re- I,
Yeah.
okay, because I was gonna say I had to take a restroom break because I'm
okay.
drinking all this water. So why doesn't he tell me everything? And then I'm gonna run, and then Vonnie, I'll let you do your thing. Um, there's okay. I'll say it like this. I get asked that question all the time, like, what do men want? And I don't think that I think it would be a little unfair to give like a silver bullet of like this is what all men want, other than the word respect.
Well,
Um,
hold on before you go down that path
mhm,
because that was just a leader. I don't think
okay.
that can be answered.
Right,
The
right. And
question
that's
I
where I
want
was gonna
you
go
to
with the fair
answer,
and a fair. Yeah.
yeah, is and also I'm gonna insert myself here a little bit. I want you to explain if you think it is what's the implication here, and then what would you tell? I'm your person you're consulting, and I'm asking you this as a female. I've called you up and Elam, hey, why doesn't he tell me everything? What are the implications there?
Is that to Elam? Is he taking it first?
I I, I think he may
Or
have
had to go to the rest.
or he accidentally not this, but let's you and I do it. We because
Okay.
I can edit this to some degree,
Yeah.
but let's do it. So why doesn't he tell me anything? And maybe you can answer from a coaching or a therapist perspective. I'm
Yeah.
sorry,
Yeah.
or maybe real life perspective.
I mean, obviously, that's a loaded question. And the reason I think, because again, I'm not a man, so I can only give my female perspective, my feminine perspective. But I think the reason men don't tell women everything is because we can't handle everything. We really don't want to know everything because what we're gonna do is throw that back up when it's convenient, right? It sometimes
Right.
becomes about power and control. And so once I have this little tidbit of information, then I can use that at the appropriate time against him. And so again, for me, there were certain questions. It was in the movie Love Jones, I think, when Darius said, "I learned never to ask a question I didn't want the answer to." And
Mhm.
so I'm not saying that women should not ask certain questions because certainly there are certain things we need to know and we need to ask those questions and be okay with the answer, whatever they are. But I just think that for women, a lot of times we say, I just want you to open up and talk to me. I just want you to be honest with me. And then when the man is honest, we didn't really want to hear that because
Right,
if he says, well, the sex is getting boring, what woman wants to hear that? But we
right,
ask the question, sweetie, is the sex still exciting for you? And if the man truly answers and says, no, actually, it's kind of boring, we're going to die. And then we're going to start arguing and accusing and finger pointing and everything else. So why doesn't he tell me everything? Is because honestly, we cannot handle everything. And the reality is, we don't tell men everything. I mean, women, let's be honest. We are not telling everything either. And that's not to say we're lying or being deceptive or holding secrets. It's just that we don't tell each other everything. And I don't even think that we should, because if you're going to spend a lifetime with someone, you're going to get to know things over time. Like, you're not going to be a couple who's been married 50 years, like Elam's parents, by getting there in the first year or the second year. Those
Right.
relationships are built and grow over time. That intimacy grows over time. And as intimacy grows, then people begin to be more comfortable sharing things, because at that point, now maybe I can handle it better because we've
Right.
built up this level of intimacy and trust, and everything isn't just based anymore on looks or on, some of those superficial factors that are there in the beginning.
Sure. Sure. That's a good answer. Thank you, Mr. Elam.
Yeah, definitely agree with what Vonnie just said, and I'll add in there. I the first thing that came up to my mind is that you can't handle the truth. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's real. I don't think that anybody should tell anybody everything because we really cannot handle everything. I just that it's like the unsexy thing to say because people are like, oh my God, you kids can't be an open book. No, okay. Because half of the reason why is because I don't even know how I feel. So if I try to tell you everything, I'm going to stumble and fumble through that, and then that might create an either bigger bubble. But let me just go to if I had to put a silver bullet on this of why one of the number one reasons why that men don't even speak to and share their thoughts, again, to Vonnie's point earlier, that women, you do about 20,000 words a day, we do about 5,000 words a day.
Right.
So we already don't talk that much. Now let's add a subculture that exists, that I was taught when I grew up. Okay, if you are a male on this planet, 9 times out of 10 you were taught to don't cry like a girl, don't share emotion. You got to watch how you speak, because if you speak too much of your emotions, then you're less of a man, because you're not supposed to feel hurt or pain or whatever case to be. Tough it up, go through or whatever. So we've been built for tough to that they and to the defense of those that have brought us along the way. That's to make us tough and go out here and be able to defend and do a home and secure it and all that good stuff. But in the plight of doing that, we now meet a woman, and now we love her, and now we don't understand emotions because we were taught to not have them. So we have to basically, a lot of times when we get married, and I will raise my hand when I say the words feel some type of way, like that was me, because I was like, I've never felt this before, disappointment from this person. Because before I would fix it a different type of way when I'm in my dating phase. Now I'm married, so like, I gotta have my fidelity and my loyalty and do the right thing, right? So I didn't understand that, and so I think that that's one of the number one reasons why. We could go to deception after that. We can go to, we don't even know that we don't know after that. But if I just said that there's a subculture, we were literally raised as men. And even those single moms, I try to share with them as well. They were like, stop crying like a little girl. Like women even say it. Stop being so emotional. You want to stop a man in his tracks? Tell him he's being emotional. You're stopping him in his tracks. And then you really want him to express. So it's actually a contradiction when it's done.
Yeah. And can I add to that too, Kelly? Because I have definitely heard that from couples that I've worked with, that the man say, whenever I try, and with y'all, you're kind of sometimes one and done. So it's like, if I try to open up to you once and you hurt me, or you make me feel, too emotional or too sensitive, like I'm done. We could be together 50 more years and I'm done, because back in 1976, you did. And
real. That's
so
real.
that's one of the things that I've heard from a lot of the couples I work with, from the men, that, when I did open up one time about something, this is what the result of that was. And so I learned, like, that I couldn't be my full self. And I agree with Elam, like, as a society, we don't encourage men to have feelings, to be in touch with their feelings and their emotions, and we do, we penalize and criticize them if they do that. Even women, Kelly, I was telling you about my son the other day, who's now dating, and he's a great kid, he's an AB student, he's respectful, and unfortunately he tends to like the girls that are a little hood, they cute. And so, but
It's adventurous. It's
right,
adventurous,
they're not attracted to him per se, because he's too nice, he's too mannerable, he ain't avoiding their phone calls, he's not ghosting them, he's not yelling at them or calling them names or anything
Right.
like that. So it's like, to a certain extent, we as women encourage that culture in men
Yep. There you go.
also, because when we get the nice guy, and I've had so many women ask me, Giovanna, he's so nice and he's everything, but I'm just not attracted to him. And yet I'm still dealing with the one over here who's got two or three women on the side,
Come on.
because
Right.
he's exciting, because there's adventure there, there's a spark, there's a passion. And again, I was guilty of that too. But when I knew that it was time for me to settle down, I was like, the bad boys are the ones you play with and date. You don't marry,
Right.
because he's not going to automatically change at the altar and all of a sudden be this great spouse and partner. So I think it's a lot of times that's what women do. It's like, we want the bad boy and then we try to turn him into this really great settled husband type, and then we feel bamboozled when that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that nurturing factor that you have in you actually works negatively for you, because you're like, this is women like projects, so and there are some men that do too, so let me just be clear about that. There's Captain Save 'em. we,
Captain
we do
Save.
exist. Captain Save 'em exists out there, right? But for women it's like, well, he would be amazing if he could just,
Mm-hmm.
and you go for that just to try to bring it out, and then you become disappointed when it doesn't come out. So we
Yeah.
just have to be cautious of how we're raising even our children today. And we can raise them with strength, but then them also have emotion. We could raise them with intellect and wisdom, but then also encourage them to go see the Vonnies of the world. Counseling in our culture, come on, somebody. You know what I'm saying? It's literally weaponized right now.
Mm-hmm.
You could hear some people arguing and they're just like, you need to be in counseling. And I'm like, every time I'm like, that should be just like breathing air.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's wrong with being in counseling? Why we shouldn't be weaponizing something that actually helps us to improve and unpack some of the things that we might be walking through. So we just have to be cautious of the words that we use while we're trying to bring strength to our children, that we're
Right.
not, diminishing some of the things that they really need to participate in.
Yeah, thank you guys both for that detail. I think too, this is a good point to remind the listeners, if these are questions that you have had in the past and they didn't go well for you, or you have now, and you hear the suggestions from our panelists about how to approach it and maybe some origins, etc. Hopefully this can work for you. But I think it's notwithstanding some deception, because that's kind of, we're not dealing with that here. This isn't some sort of e-channel show. What we want to do is provide you and empower you with information that's going to help you. So we're not talking about deception. What we're talking about is this person is not being completely honest with you about everything, not to hurt you, not anything malicious. And so for me, in 25 years, having been the man in this relationship, I agree with what both of you guys have said, particularly you, Vonnie, in that I have shared with my wife some things, because, she said, hey, I feel like you don't tell me anything. And then I did tell her. And the reaction I got was like, yeah, that ain't even the whole thing. And you freaking out. So I'm just going to have to do this. And I come from a background of, I didn't have a dad growing up and so forth. So a lot of times I was just used to doing stuff on my own. I didn't have to tell anybody. I didn't feel like anybody needed to really know. But I know in my case that I'm not doing anything malicious or deceitful. And really, from my standpoint, I kind of see it as protection. And many times in the frat, when we are with brothers, we are there to share information that we cannot share anywhere else,
Right.
particularly in our relationships.
Mm.
We always know the kids have the parents to stand on, the mom to lean up against, and mom has dad to lean up against. So many times in our families, there's no one for us to lean up against. There's no wall on the other side of us. And if we start tumbling, I'm gonna tell you, like you said before, Vonnie, you may think you want to know, but to know that your man is afraid of something, that's not really gonna make you feel comfortable. I
Nope.
got to be honest with you. That is not, it's not gonna make you feel comfortable. So, but anyway, I said I wasn't gonna interject, but I really appreciate
No,
the
that was
detail.
good. Yeah.
So we're gonna go deeper and deeper and deeper. Why do I always have to initiate sex? Why?
Who's asking that question?
Good question. Why? I can tell you from my perspective, I feel like I'm going to get more questions like this if I was a therapist for men. One of the shows that we did early on was similar to, what do men want? And one of the Harvard.edu posts that we took this from, it was a question that was given to folks in marriages for 40 years plus. And one of the questions that pretty much every man asked was, well, this is the way they presented it. It wasn't, why do I always have to initiate it? They said one of the things that they would like is if their spouse initiated sex more. And after you guys respond, I'll tell you why they said that. But this is a question. I'm coming to you as a consult, and I'm saying, listen, why do I always have to initiate it? Let's start with Miss Fonnie.
Oh, okay. I just knew you were going to Elam. Okay.
Listen, I was about to go in, but if you want to prepare your answer, that's fine.
A man is asking me this question because I don't get this asked about a lot from a lot of women. But actually, I have had some women ask this question. But I think that it's important for both people in a relationship to feel wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I think that men are no different in that aspect, that you all want to feel wanted just like a woman wants to feel wanted. And so having someone initiate kind of sends that signal to your brain that I'm desired, I'm wanted, I'm attractive to this person. So honestly, I definitely think it should not be all one partner versus the other. There are people that are just more, to me, sexually assertive than other people are. And some of that's just upbringing and background. I think some of that's societal, because societally, women are considered a whore. Women are considered a slut. A man might be like, girl, how you learn to do that? Or who else you gave a blowjob to that you so good at it? So to some extent, women may decide to hold back just because of that thought that men want to be in control, that they want to be dominant, that they want to feel like they're teaching the woman everything, that she's the first, that he has, that he's the one that she has experienced things with, when that may not be the case. Let's just be honest. And so I think to that point, again, you just have people that are more sexually assertive. But I also think sometimes in a woman's mind is, how much do I initiate? Because I don't want to be seen as a freak. I'm his wife. Now, if I'm the girlfriend, I don't care. We can go at it. But if I'm the wife, there's almost this certain mindset that I'm supposed to have. I'm supposed to be his queen. I'm supposed to be on a pedestal. So therefore, I can't get too freaky, and so I think from a woman's perspective, sometimes it's that. And then again, I just think from a male or from both perspectives, I think we all want to feel wanted, and we want to feel like that other person desires us, and that we're not always the one, making the having the initiation.
Okay. All right. Mr. King.
I think the first part that man, I do share this with young men in particular. But first, we have to understand that the sexual organs, right? Without going into too much of health class, but let's just look at it as, when you hear sometimes you hear ladies like, why is he always thinking about sex, whatever case to be. And I start telling men, listen, if you read the male brain, you would understand and be able to boldly say, it's because that's the way I was made.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Our sexual organs are like what? 10 times the size, this is biological now. We have none of this. Is not even about desires and wants. We're saying we have to understand your brain really runs the show.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if you don't understand your biology, it will become your destiny. Right. And so we have to, off the top, that our sexual organs, we're out here to try to procreate. Just like I said before, that women are out here to select. Well, we're out here literally as men to procreate. And so with that being said, is there a harness that we need to put on it? Is there discipline that we need to walk in? Yes, but understand that this is a natural reaction from us, right? If this is the way that we want to naturally go, it's not always as And we're talking about obviously two consenting adults, right? That people who know each other, not anything from an aggressive perspective, but just, this is the thought process that we have. And it's normally shamed to the point where, some men are just like, oh my God, why am I thinking about sex so much or whatever? And so that would be the first thing, is that it's biological. The second thing is that some of us, and I'll just go into the spouse space, we won't even deal with the girlfriend space. We're just going to say from a spouse perspective. Those of you who are believers, of course, it does talk about how the bedroom is undefiled. So I reject anybody who's saying that, hey, you don't want to be a freak. No, go on and be a freak for that person, because you have to understand the assignment for that person. And I think that's sometimes that's what we don't do. We don't understand the assignment for that person. Is every man a physical touch person? No. I have guy friends who are just like, yo, I'm okay with once a week. And I'm looking at him like, huh? Like, no. Why? Because I'm a physical touch person.
Who is this
right?
person?
Exactly. Right. But but there are some that are in that space. And so you have to understand the assignment for that person. For the person that you choose, you have to understand what is the sexual quotient for that person. If he says 5 times, you're down with 2 times, maybe y'all will land at 3 times. This is where the collaboration comes from, right? You might not get the exact number that you're looking for. Somebody's going to have to go up. Somebody's going to come down. But you have to understand the assignment. And that's why when I start hearing women, I love to be in groups with women to just sit there and listen to them. They're just like, girl, you got to train him. Let me tell you something that you don't want to do. Don't think you're trying to train a brain that you can't do. You don't have that power of just getting him to a point where, because here's the thing, what normally ends up happening, the brain is positioned to want to resist pain. There is a pain, and there's a whole chapter I talk about in my first book of Understanding a Man, sexual rejection, and how do men really feel about it. In that chapter, 100% of the men that were single, meaning unmarried, had no idea what I was talking about. They had no idea. They didn't even understand it. It was just like, what do you mean rejection? Outside of maybe her cycle, or maybe she's like really, 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 really tired, really, really, and like throw some more reallys on there. Then I might know, but they had no idea. But the married men use phrases like disappointed, rejected, angry, some of them, close to tears, because they're just like, I don't understand. I desire this person and I'm not getting, that initiation from them. So you have to understand the assignment for that person and be able to have that mature conversation and make sure that you're qualifying. There's kind of like an ongoing qualification that some of us need to think about. Even though you are married, it's almost like recertification, right? So that by the time that you get to Giovanna, get to Vonnie, right? Vonnie, we cool. Get to Vonnie. You are not having that as maybe like the space that you have so much contention in, because you're trying to resist them versus trying to embrace what the assignment is for that person.
Okay. I accept what both you guys have said, and that's a lot of good information. So let's take it a step further. We're in it now. This is not a relationship in terms of dating. We're married. Is this enough to dissolve a marriage? Is this enough? So I've been in this 25 years, and of course, this conversation has come up. I think if you've been in it 2 years or a year, if your guy it's come up, because usually, not always, usually it's the guy wondering, like Elam said, it's usually 5 times a week. Now I'm down to 2, and that 2 ain't gonna happen unless I make it happen. So this is not what I came here for. What does a person do? I mean, what is it to do? If we're coming to you guys as counsel and say, listen, I've been here 10 years. I don't think it's justified for me to leave this relationship over this, but I also feel like I resent this person. Or like Elam is saying, I feel some discontentment because I'm not satisfied here. And I feel like at some point, I may leave. So is there something to do when these don't match up? Is there something that can be done? What advice do you give when these libidos don't match up and you're in it 10, 15, 20 years? Mr. Elam, you want to take it first?
I was gonna say
Yeah,
I knew that was you first, Elam.
yeah, no, yeah. So I say like this, and I have had people to come to me with this particular question, and so what I do first is I break down the mechanics of it. So I try to make sure that it's understood. As you can see, that I'm even doing that inside of our conversation. This is the way the brain works for this person, right? And so I take the trip down the love language. I have people go, take the love language quiz. Okay, so now at this point, now you see, you take the quiz, he take the quiz. Okay, now let's just say that his is, physical touch is his number one. So I say to her, I'm just like, you're talking about baseline. It's like building a house, right? People don't just put the walls on the grass, right? They put that concrete slab first so that you can build on something, right? And so we're talking about outside of spirituality, outside of that is love. And so if this person is built biologically, this is the way this person's brain is wired for that physical touch. You now have to understand that this is the way this person is. Now, after that, I then unpack the pieces of, okay, well, what does it look like for you, sex quotient wise, sir? Okay, you say 3 times. Okay, ma'am, are you signing up for this? Because this is who he is.
I
And then
remember we in this 15 years now. I
yeah, I know,
signed
but
up
watch it,
a
watch it.
long
I'm
time
so
ago.
glad that you said that because I was about to go there. Because sometimes people's love languages change, right? Every 10 to 15 years, your love language can change. So in the beginning, Michelle might have been a quality time, right? And stuff like, gifts. Later on, it shifted to quality time. And so so you have to, this is where you have people that say, oh, we grew apart and stuff like that. No, you stopped paying attention to who the person was and you did not want to evolve with that person, right? So at the end of the day, this is where I go back to, there's a requalification that happens. And that's why I ask couples to take the love language quiz yearly. Just something simple as taking this 15 minutes to understand, this is what I need. This is what I need, not what I want, because it's looked upon sometimes as just a want, just two bodies coming together and keep it moving. No, that as a love language quality time person, that is my regeneration. That is how I go back out here and fight the lions and the tigers and the bears, because you are my octane. And so once you understand the level of importance of that, then there tends to be more of a blend of, okay, I just thought he just wanted it because he just wanted to get his rocks off, versus he's plugging into you as the only resource that allows him to feel this type of love and then go out there and be as great as you want him to be. So I think it's really a lot of times of just understanding what that, but that's the space that I walk in when couples come to me with that.
Okay. All right, Miss Vonnie.
So I think that you know, I do something very similar when I'm working with a couple, as trying to see, how they went into it, even though I know you're saying we're 15 years down the line, but a lot of us go into relationships with unrealistic expectations. We
Mm,
go into them not being completely honest. We might
mhm.
say, I'm cool and I got a high sex drive, but 5 years in, we're feeling like, oh, well, now you should just love me because I'm there for you. And
Right.
and so sometimes people are wanting to hold you to that. Like, no, when we got together, I told you that this is what I needed to feel satisfied, or, to feel loved and desired. So I think a lot of it is just because we are not always honest and upfront. Once attraction takes hold, we just want to be with that person and we're willing to, shave a couple off our number or whatever, just to kind of try to make that work. And then 15 years down the line, that truth is coming to the surface. And so I definitely think intimacy, sex is important. I feel like, I always joke with my couples and I say, sure, we're supposed to procreate, but there's a reason God made it feel good.
Right.
Mhm.
Because he could have had us bump elbows to procreate. And so
That's
there's a
word.
reason why there's all kind of sensors and erroneous zones in that area to feel good, because he wanted us to desire to have that closeness and that connection with one another. And so I think, though, that some of this, when we think about it historically, women and men have been pitted against one another so much. The battle of the sexes, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Like there's almost been this people have profited, off of
Mm-hmm.
the problems between men and women, the disconnect. Elam spoke in the beginning about how, the way that we save our communities is by saving our families, but the way that we save and build our families is it starts with mom and dad. Well, guess what? Traditionally, we haven't held a high regard for marriage. We haven't
Right.
held a high regard for a strong, healthy relationship. We laugh about it. We have satire about it and jokes
Right.
about it, and comedians do routines about men and women being against one another. And so with women, a lot of times the thinking is, oh girl, he just wants some, and he didn't even cut the grass last week, and then he come in wanting some. And so then we look at withholding as a form of punishment.
Right.
Or for the men, it's like, well, she ain't giving me none, so I think I feel justified to go on out here and do whatever. Or I feel justified not giving her what it is that she wants. If she wants a back rub, then I'm not giving that because I'm not getting sex. And so again, it just pits us against one another as
Right.
opponents, as adversaries instead of allies. And I think when you realize that sex is meant to be a form of connection,
Right.
when you get married, back in the old days, you weren't even legally married until you had consummated. So the
Right.
marriage wasn't even considered legal until there was consummation. And so therefore, this is an important part of a relationship and how people come together and connect. I joke with a lot of women that tell me, girl, I don't really have to have it too often. And I'm like, child, that's the best stress reliever. And that's why you walking around
High blood pressure.
that's why you walk around uptight and irritable and mad at the world. You better go somewhere and release some pressure. And
Mm-hmm.
and I say it as a joke, but in reality, I mean it. Like a lot of us as women, we see it as just something men want, and that we gotta oblige every now and then once we've been married. Now, when we were
Yeah.
single and doing our thing, sex was the greatest thing on earth. But now that we're married and we've had children, and our children are growing, our bodies are changing, we almost start looking at sex as the enemy and the man wanting it as the enemy. And so getting
Yeah.
women to understand that, as Elam has said, that this is biological, it's a natural part of life. I have couples that when I'm working to help them reunite, I'll say, when you go to bed at night, do you touch each other in the bed? I'm not even talking about sex. Do you touch a hand to a leg, or leg to leg, or something like that? And so many couples don't. And so you're not even having intimacy in those small ways. How are you
Right.
going to end up having sex? And when you do, you feel like you're just fulfilling a quota. Well, he said 3 times a week.
Right.
Let
Right.
me knock out this 3 times, but girl,
Right. Right.
I'm thinking about, the haves and the have
Yeah.
nots. I ain't really into it. And so,
Right.
and part of that, of course, is men knowing that we're like ovens, and you got to heat it up, and
Right.
you start prepping for sex in the morning, text me during the day and say, girl, you was looking good when you walked out this morning. Now my mind is already thinking, you might get some tonight, or you come in and you've cooked, or when I get home, you've already helped the kids with homework or whatever. All those things matter to a woman as far as sex. But like I tell women, men wake up, it's Wednesday. We doing it, like they don't
Yeah.
need all those precursors. But I just think we have to change some of the mindsets and the attitudes around what sex is inside of marriage.
Yeah.
And especially when people are Christian, like I said, for a lot of women, it's almost like, I can't go there, girl, because they feel like they're somehow stepping
Some
outside of God's
stigma.
will,
Yeah.
to be uninhibited with their spouses. When like you said, if you're gonna have some freaky sex, have it inside your marriage.
Right. Right. Yes, sir.
Well, Hebrews said it all. So if they are of the church, they can read Hebrews 13:4. I started pulling up stuff right while you was talking, Bonnie, because I'm like, okay, for my church folk, Hebrews 13:4. But here's the thing: another space that just I want to highlight is that it should not, in my opinion, have to be just. It's not just the responsibility of the man to get of the husband to get the wife in the mood. It's also the responsibility of the wife to get in the mood. So yes, I know what I might desire, so I need to grease the skids, if you will, right? Whether it's texting, whether it's whatever case may be. But then also, I think it's important, and this is where I guess the question comes up from men of that. It's like, okay, when I was dating, I'm seeking, trying to do what I got to do to get it, right? But if I'm married, do I really need to keep always creating that moment, is there a space that the wife can come forward and create that moment as well, because our bodies belong to each other, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's just the only space that I know sometimes men bring up.
Well, I'm laughing because you both kind of jarred some memories in me. This is several years ago. I won't mention who I was talking to, but I was talking to this lady, a friend of mine, and she almost said word for word, Bonnie, what you were saying about cutting the grass. And if he does this, then I may give him some. And I said, what are you
Right.
giving me?
Right.
What exactly are you giving
That's
him
word.
that he's not giving you? So I have, not now, but I have had strong issue with this ownership of sex. Now, of course, we own our bodies. No one's talking about, forcing themselves. That's not what I'm talking about. But the attitude of this will happen when I say in a marriage, it's one of those things. I think if it's not handled correctly, it goes. Listen, I'm a gardener. I grow tomatoes, a lot of tomatoes. And if you know anything about tomatoes, especially bigger tomatoes, beefsteak
Hmm.
tomatoes, they grow vines like crazy.
Right.
But you don't want them to do that because it's going to stress out the plant, because every vine is not going to produce a fruit. So you have to prune it. Otherwise, it's going to go crazy. It's going to go somewhere. It's going to grow. And what I told this lady was, he's going to eat. The issue is he going to eat at your table?
Hmm.
You said something before, Elam, about training someone. I whether it's woman to a man or man to a woman, this idea of ownership of this particular piece of the relationship, and we're talking marriage, because it's so critical, so important, it's going to go in other directions if it's not handled. That's just my 2 cents from being married 25 years.
Yeah.
And the last thing I'll say, and I'll let you close out before we go to the next question, is I believe that it can be. Bonnie said it first, and I think that's the key. Really, a lot of times with guys, the actual act in itself is not really what we're going for, although we're never going to turn it down. It's just we want to feel. Listen, if I know 10 dudes, and listen, I have friends who are gay, I have family members who are gay. I'm not talking about a homosexual relationship. I'm talking about a male, female relationship. If I ask 10 guys, I don't care whether they have flu or whether they're on their way to work, if there's any way that they could have sex,
Yes,
they
sir.
will do it. If there's
Yes, sir.
any way.
Yes, sir.
So nobody's turned it down.
I
So
think.
nobody's confused that men want women. This is not it's not a contest, but nobody's confused. The issue comes in where maybe the guy says to himself one day, if I don't initiate this, how long would this go? How like literally, how long would we go? I have a friend, I kid you not. He told me this, I almost drove outside the road. I don't have any reason to believe that he would lie. I mean, he didn't have anything to gain by sharing this, certainly. 11 months is what he told me. He said 11 months. And
Lord have mercy.
I wasn't intimate with my wife for 11 months. So what that says to me as a man is that somebody else is in the picture. There's no communication because I don't know what we're talking about. If nothing is good, nothing is like what is happening. So I bring this up in this kind of convoluted way to present how it can get sticky in the relationship when something like this gets off track. It can be a small thing, or it can go out like that tomato branch and you lose control of it because it started off, a small thing. You understand what I'm saying? I don't know if I'm
No, it makes sense to me, but I'll give Vonnie a chance to echo that if she has any thoughts,
Um,
because I can go for the next hour on this. So I did. The only reason why, because men bring it to me all the time, so I'm just like, but I know Vonnie, you get this thrown at you as well. So
Yeah, I think it's again
11 months is not
it
natural.
can. I think it can. I've heard it. I didn't flinch when you said it. I've had couples where it's been over a year, so 11 months. I'm like, okay, I've heard it. And but I think, like you said, I think it's like people get in a rut, and certainly
Yeah.
not allowing for things like illness sometimes, because
Right.
I've had clients where somebody's had an illness, and so they just haven't been physically able
Yeah,
to do it.
we're gonna
Outside of
we'll let
that,
them have a
yeah,
pass.
yeah,
But I wanted you to speak to the ownership, and I just don't want to pin it on the ladies. But a lot of times with this,
okay,
I will give him some. That
oh, okay,
still to some degree kind of irks me when I hear
yeah,
grown people say that.
mhm,
It's an indication to me that they are still relatively unconscious as it relates to men and how that works. Because I know some men, if you say that to them, number one, it's a turn off. And number two, they will never tell you this, but they will prove to themselves that they don't have to have you in order to eat. Let's just
right,
put it that way. And
right,
you don't want to get yourself in that. So I wanted you to speak to the
okay,
idea of the ownership. So for example, if my wife rolls over in the middle of the night, it'd be 3 o'clock in the morning. It's happened plenty of times. It's going down. If I roll over, chances are it depends. It
mhm,
depends what kind of day she had.
right,
Was she completely asleep? Do her leg hurt? What you know what I'm saying? So sometimes it may feel like you can have it on demand, and I'm just kind of chilling, waiting to see if you're good to go.
yeah. So I'm going to go back a little bit because, again, I think we've been throwing biology around a lot. And I want to be clear that I also advocate for a woman's biology. So, our biology does change over time, especially after childbirth. You know, for a lot of us, are once those hormones kick in, and again, just that active childbirth for a lot of women, and I've heard this so many times, they truly have no desire, and
Mm,
it's tough to get in the mood or initiate when you really don't have the mental or physical desire. So you
to
feel
do
as if
so.
you're just doing it out of obligation or kind of going with the motion. And you know, or women who are going through menopause, unfortunately, we don't, as women, don't have the luxury of just having our biology work, you know, without our mental input. So much of that for us is tied to how we feel, to our emotions, to whether we feel attractive. I have women that will say that, you know, they've gained weight, and so it's not that they don't desire their husband, they don't feel attractive in and of themselves, and so they're feeling like, girl, I don't feel attractive, I don't want to take my clothes off, I know he's probably looking at me like she's gained 50 pounds since we got married. And so for a woman, once we get in our heads in that way, that
Mm,
completely shuts down libido, that shuts down the sexual urge. And again, I hear this so often, so I will suggest things to women like natural supplements, maca, and different things like that that are known to, you know,
right.
revive, you know, the
Hmm.
sexual urges. But for a lot of women, it's not just that I don't want you. Now some women, again, will play those head games. Well, if you cut the grass, I might give you some. But for some women, they might truly desire you, but I don't have any physical feeling of that. And because I really want to have that physical feeling, I just try to avoid it. Because sometimes you all can tell. You can say, you're really not into it, are you? Or, you know, you just seem like you want to hurry up and get it over with, because you can tell that the passion for her is just not there.
Right.
And so again, sometimes it's not that I don't desire you. I still love you. I'm still attracted. I want to please you, but my body is turned completely off. And
Mm,
so
Hmm.
how do I create that or manufacture that or fake that to please you, or to for us to come together and have that old spark when I'm not feeling a spark? And
hmm.
so again, I don't think it becomes an excuse or a, you know, a cop out for a woman to just be like, well, I don't have any urge, so I don't have to do anything. I think as women and being in a relationship and having certain expectations, it's our responsibility. Then let me go meet with my doctor. Let me see what are some things that I can do. Let me, you know, exercise helps create sexual
Yeah.
urge. So
Yes.
let me start exercising, let me start running or something like that, because this is important to me. It's important to him, and it's important to our marriage. And so but again, I think it also, Kelly, goes back to women and men have been pitted against each other so
Mm.
much, especially in the Black community. When you think about the music and the songs and the
Oh
movies,
yeah.
it's almost like I'm gonna get her before she get me, or I'm gonna get him before he gets me.
Right.
And so when women get married, when those women get married, they're bringing that into the marriage. Girl, if he buy me this
True.
bag, he'll get some, because they do feel like that's their power. This is the only power. This is the only bargaining tool I have. This is the
Mm.
only leverage I have.
And
Otherwise,
that's dangerous.
yeah, otherwise he's just gonna, whatever, not pay me any attention. And so the only time he pays me attention is during sex. Then I'm not giving him sex, because I also need him to spend quality time with me and just watch a movie. So I think there are just so many factors that go into that, that it's
Hmm.
hard to just look at it from one aspect and say,
Yeah.
women, y'all, that's wrong. Because I think you've got to hear from some of the women as well. Again, I don't think it's a cop out or an excuse, but it certainly can be an explanation.
No, and so Kelly, you guys probably saw me both, and Vonnie, you touched on something that's just so strong in the very first couple of sentences that you were talking about the transitions of a woman in her body, and you guys probably, those of you who are watching, you saw me kind of get up. I wanted to run and get this book right here. Okay, it's called The Upgrade, right? And so that's by Dr. Llewellyn Brizendine, and she in that book she's talking. You see how the female brain grows stronger and better in midlife and beyond. So what she does is she takes the woman's body between 35 and 65. And there is so much education that we don't have, men. There's so much education that women don't have, just about their bodies and what they're going through before menopause, during menopause, and afterwards, what their brains are literally going through, how they're unable to really communicate certain things because they don't feel like us as men understand it. And so in this book, she's basically talking about some of the things that you go through, some of the things you're feeling, and
Right.
how it's natural, and how we have to have an understanding of it. Whereas men, ultimately, we feel like we're being rejected, where a
Yep.
lot of times it's men, we have to understand that they're going through something that we don't even understand, whether it's the hot flashes, whether it's the night sweats, whether it's the anxiety, whether it's the just the spikes in their blood pressure or whatever. So what they used to know of the body and the hot body or whatever case may be, that thing is now transitioning, right? And so we as men, we're like, you ready? And she's like, I don't even understand what's going on. And so we're like, oh, you don't want me,
Mhm.
So it's a high level of communication that needs to exist in that space. So I purposely wanted to get this and bring this up, because this is education that, in my opinion, that can save some people's marriages.
Right.
The upgrade, but it basically talks about, that's a big span, 35 to 65, of how a woman's body is transitioning. Well, that's marriage time, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so there's just an understanding that we have to have on both sides. So it's a little bit deeper sometimes, men, I will say,
Yeah.
in the defense of women, it's a little bit deeper sometimes, of just, she doesn't want you. No, she's going through something. She doesn't understand it, and then you don't understand it either.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what my takeaway is, the communication can be the key to the solution.
Mhm.
And if you are feeling rejected or angry or unsatisfied, you need to find a way to delicately communicate that. If you're feeling as a woman, I'm not prepared, I don't feel comfortable, then let's communicate that. I think the brush off without any discussion leaves
True.
us both in our
Yes, sir.
heads, and it creates additional issues,
Agreed.
because men will feel a certain way and a woman will feel a certain way. And I don't want to get too much deeper in it, because we have one more question. But I know so many folks, well, not so many of the folks that I do know, this has come up every time. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
if I know 5 guys, I'm telling you, whether they're telling their wives or not. And these guys are not people who run the street and want to have outside relationships. But they have said to me on more than one occasion this is not what I signed up for.
Agreed.
This is not what I signed up for. And it doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem this, that, and the other. So you could talk this piece to death, but for the folks that are listening, just know that communication really is the key to this solution. So
Can I
every
can I ask 30 seconds really quickly to Vani
Okay, go
if
ahead.
she had to give us some level of education in this area because we're over here super ignorant about it. Because as I read this, I was just like, oh my God, I know, just being in that space sometimes. Vani, what's a certain way that maybe we could think in that space? And I'm sorry, Kelly,
No,
I
you
wanted
good.
her
You
to
good.
add that just jumped into my head. Vani, how could we think about this better if you had to just speak to the men quickly?
I think what Kelly said, I think it's about communication on both sides. For the men, use your words. And again, that's not always easy for you all because you've kind of been told to just shut down. So use your words, but not to argue with her or to, I don't ever get none and this ain't what I signed up for, which is only going to further put her on the
Mhm.
defense, which is only further going to make her emotionally shut down. So instead of that, say, baby, I just miss you. I desire you. Man, do you remember when we first got together and we would sneak in your mama's whatever and we would do it and blah, blah, blah. See, now you're playing to my emotional brain and you're taking me back there, which hopefully will start to, revive some of those natural urges and that natural desire. But I think for the men, not to just automatically think it's because she's rejecting you, because I have heard from too many women that I want to do it. I wish, but the desire just isn't there. So that's why I say I recommend, like, well, go see your gynecologist, see what they can do from a hormonal perspective. If you're depressed or you're going through mood swings, maybe look at taking something in that area. So often, like I said, I think we know marriage is supposed to be forever. So we just start taking each other for granted and we just assume that, you know what, he signed up for me for life or she signed on for life. So they just got to go through this and be with me, better or for worse, rich or
Yeah.
poor, sickness and in health. And so we think that's just an automatic default thing, forgetting that it still takes work, to keep the fire lit and to keep the fire burning. But I would just say, men, it is not always personal. It is not, and sometimes the rejection isn't you, it's me. See, because I don't like this extra 30 pounds. I don't
Mhm.
like the belly. I don't like the stretch marks. I don't like that my boobs are sagging and they used to sit up and say hello. And so
Right.
it's not you I'm rejecting. I don't feel good about me. And because we, again, are so emotional as women, once I get locked in my head with that thing and locked in the emotion, that just kind of trumps everything else. So have those conversations. Say to her, baby, I'm feeling like you don't desire me. Is that what it is? Just ask the question. I think sometimes we're both so afraid of being vulnerable to the other
Right.
that,
Right.
again, we just pick a darn fight or we talk about something that really ain't got nothing to do with it, when I really just want to say, man, I really miss you. Like, man, or whatever
Mhm.
it is that you want to communicate to her. Just say what it is you're feeling and
Yeah.
then listen to what she has to say.
We're going to circle back because I think we probably could do a whole podcast just on this because it's got a lot of legs. The thing is, we live in a society, especially now. When I was a kid, I don't know, if somebody had a magazine, you were good to see a naked lady. But now there's so much porn and so much distortion of what relationships are that guys take a lot of that into the bedroom. And if their wives, a lot of times, are not replicating what they see on TV, even they're like, "Did I get a dud? Or what's really happening? I gotta, I've signed up for this for life." So we're not going to. Here's two things I'll tell you. Number one, we're going to come back and we're going to extend this. But number two, that energy that you're feeling, a lot of times it's best that you hold on to it, men. So we're going to talk about the power spiritually of semen retention and what the ancients knew that we don't know because we spend so much time watching porn and masturbating that we have no personal power because we release it and we let it go so often that we can't move the mountains that the teacher talked about. This is going to be the last question, guys, and we're going to call it a podcast. My girlfriend, my spouse, my partner, my husband is very clutchy with their phone.
Mm.
Oh Lord.
Very clutchy. with their phone. That makes me suspicious. We're living in a day and age, guys, where I don't know if there's a relationship out there that at some point hasn't come under that who's that? Why are they texting you? Why who is that calling? And that makes me feel uncomfortable. I would think at this point, guys, living in a digital age, that you guys have heard this more than once in a counseling session. He, she, they are too clutchy with this phone. It makes me feel uncomfortable. What to do? Let's start with Miss Vonnie.
Yeah, I love to throw me the ball.
Well, no, we okay. I start. I
No,
start missing.
No, no,
Like,
I
you
was
want
gonna,
to take it?
yeah, yeah. I was gonna say, I mean, because mine is kind of short, because really it is a combination of two things. It could be the insecurity on whoever the other party is first, right? Because obviously we are a victim of circumstances, to whereas maybe some things that we happen in the past, and then we see some triggers and some duplication. So we're just kind of like, let's just say for women, for men, right? Okay, so you've been cheated on, blah blah blah. Okay, so can I see your phone? Can I this? Can I that? And so I understand. So we have to unpack that. But what I would like to just take a moment to just say, I'm going to give this feedback to the ladies, regardless of whether he is or is not doing anything. Understand that a man is territorial by nature. All right. And your phone next to your house and your car is like, one of the bigger things, right? So there's a level of stubbornness that can exist there. Not that I'm not doing anything. I just don't want to feel like that I'm giving up all of myself, or, that I'm releasing my territory to you. You might be looking at it because you might have some triggers from the past. So I would just say that that's a really a case by case basis. Normally I end up unpacking that for my clients, of just saying, okay, well, where is this going? What have you dealt with? Was he unfaithful to you in the past? Okay, he wasn't. Okay, well, where is this coming from you from your past or whatever? And then normally as we unpack it, we're able to see where it really comes from. But there's not a blanket statement in there. But I would say that it's a combination of insecurities, it's a combination of territorial, and I mean, if this is your stuff, this is your stuff. So it's there's such a I could go. That's like a whole
so, is there
conversation.
anything for the person to do? Is there any action to take, or is this just a self evaluation?
It is a self and a collective evaluation. So I would say that it's both. And again, we have to look at what your non-negotiables are. If this is something that you just have to have access to or whatever, it's a rabbit hole. So that's why it's hard to really go. But I'm gonna throw that, Vonnie. I'm gonna throw that over to you, because that's a whole rabbit hole right there.
I caught it. I definitely agree. I think a lot of times it's insecurities, and it can be based on past experience. Have that couple dealt with infidelity already? And so, yes, when I see that someone is preoccupied with their phone or their computer or whatever it is, then it may lead my mind to wander. That's one of those areas I try not to touch. I just it goes
And
back
that's where
to
I was with it. So you
don't ask a question you don't want the answer to. So, the phone could be laying right there. I mean, and unless I just happen to look over and see you mama calling, and I know you've been waiting on that call, I just don't let myself go down that, because I think, it does become a rabbit hole, and then it leads you down further, because it could be that his cousin sent him a picture, and you just look at it and don't know this cousin or whatever. So it's just that just opens up so many doors. And I always tell women, like, don't hurt yourself, by going and looking
Yeah.
and searching for stuff, because you get hurt in the end, because you may see something you just don't like or don't understand. Sometimes people can have conversations that are just meant for their boys. I'm not cheating, I'm not so and so, but just from the boys, I might say, hey, did you see Cheryl the other day? You
oh,
see that, and all of a sudden, who is Cheryl, and why are you talking about Cheryl to Kelly or whatever, when it was really just a guy conversation. And women do it too. We're out to eat and we're like, girl, you see the waiter, but that's not meant for my husband to know that I said that. That's not meant for him to see that or whatever, and then start feeling like, oh, you was trying to go home with the waiter. No, it was just girl talk. And so I wasn't going to act on it. It didn't go any further. So I just, certain things, we just got to stay out of the weeds, don't willingly just run into the briar patch or whatever, because you're going to get scratched. And so again, if you got to keep doing that so much, to me, there's a bigger problem in the relationship.
Amen.
If
Yep.
you got
That's
to
real.
continually check phones and emails and break passcodes and Facebook and Messenger and
Hired detective.
like, I don't have the time for all of that. And for me, if I've got to do all that, that's already signaling that there's a
Right.
deep problem in the
Yeah.
relationship that needs to be addressed. And so whatever answer you give me about the phone, if we've got deeper problems, that's not going to solve it. So,
Right.
again, I just say it is the information age, the digital age, all of that. And there are so many ways to do stuff and do dirt.
Ah, that part right there. That's what I try to tell people.
So many ways to do dirt that if a person wants to do it, they're going to find a way
Yeah.
to do it. I
Yeah.
always live by the code that, God, don't you let me be no fool. And eventually, if I'm supposed to know what's done in the dark, will come to the light.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's where my last thoughts are going to come from. I would advise our listeners to look inward, because number one, whether you think you can or not, and the answer is you cannot control another person. You just cannot. I don't care how much you love them, how long you've been together. There's absolutely nothing that you can do that is going to get them to do what you want them to do. I think it's important to know that, but I think also it's important to see the value in you. Now, if my wife decides to go out and go home with the waiter, with that example today, I can't stop her from doing that. But what will happen is she would have lost a hell of a husband. And I know that I can, I will rebound and the universe will bring to me what I need to have. And I didn't always feel that way, because I think in my 20s, had we had cell phones, I probably would have been wanting to know who is that texting you, because I didn't feel this way. I didn't have a level of confidence that I have today. I know that I bring a lot of value to things that I do. And one of the things that I do really well is being a husband and being a father. And if you don't value that by showing me that you're going home with the waiter, then someone else will. But it's not for me to control any of that. For me, the joy is in knowing that you're doing voluntarily for me just what I'm doing voluntarily for you. And while I'll see a beautiful waitress, I know that my wife has never cut my tires or broke my windshield or stayed out all night or whatever. And I know she cares for me. So I'm not going to risk, because I know what I have in terms of value. So guys, thank you guys so much. We have a meaty podcast for our listeners to listen to over and over again. There's so much information shared tonight. And I believe we did leave some meat on the bone, especially around our sex conversation. So if you guys are up for it, we'll come back again and we will add more value there, because I like to be practical in this. And sometimes we can just say, guys, there's really nothing to be done. There's really nothing to be done. I don't know if you ever tell that to folks that come and sit in your offices, but I don't know. Maybe I feel like there's just nothing to be done sometimes. So as we close out, I'm going to let our panelists, our guests, to give us any last thoughts that you may have, and then I'll close this out. Ms. Vonnie, any last thoughts?
Um, yeah, I love what you said, Kelly, about the self-awareness piece. And really it's about knowing your own worth and your own value and what you bring to the table. And again, if someone can't, appreciate that, if they can't reciprocate that, then maybe you have some decisions to make that better serve you for where you are and who you feel that you are. Relationships take work. We don't get instruction manuals for them. A lot of times it is going to be trial and error. It is going to be experience. And the word commitment. Sometimes we just got to commit and hang in there, even
Yeah.
when we're not screwing like rabbits, or even when everything isn't clicking and we're not happy and it's not puppy dogs and roses. We got to stick with that word commitment. That I'm in it to win. I got you. I'm your rider, and so we're gonna go through this thing together, because it's tough enough just to grow and evolve individually, but then when you're trying to do that with another person who's not
Mhm.
you, that can be even more. So just like
Yes.
I said, at the end of the day, sometimes you just got to be in it to win it, and you got to commit and stick it out. I'm not saying stick with abuse or anything crazy, but sometimes if it's just we're not clicking right now, we're not vibing, we're not on the same page, go see a marriage counselor, go to a coach, and work it out, stick it out. Know that your relationship is worth it.
And speaking of which, before we go to Mr. Elam, how can our guests, and we're going to have all the right contact information in our show notes as well as on our YouTube page, but if someone needed to reach out to you, Dr. Gathers, I know you do online as well as in person, how would they be able to reach you?
So it's pretty simple. My name, GiovannaGethers.com, which is on the screen. You can definitely go there. You can purchase my books. Epiphany is my second book. Why Am I Still Single is my first book, and it is a relationship self-help book for women, and specifically for African American women. So I talk about trust and the angry Black woman and all of those things, and just how to work through your own stuff, even if you've got mommy or daddy issues. So definitely I'm on Facebook, Giovanna Gathers. I'm on Instagram, I am Giovanna Gathers. But again, you can certainly connect with me through my website and just look at a list of the services that I offer there.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Mr. Elam.
Vonnie, I got to get that book, so we about to talk like right after this, because
Okay.
I like that. I like that. Why am I still single? But I think that Kelly, you and Vonnie touched on this as well, of just about just self-awareness. I think that is so pivotal of what we do. We have to understand that we don't have self-awareness about our level of emotions. Men, we don't have our self-awareness. Women, and so we have to. I think that we really need to start there. And there was no formal education when it comes to matters of the heart. All the things that were like really important, like we didn't get the education along the way, right? We had health class, but that's it, right? Financial literacy, whole nother conversation, right? Didn't get it, right? Relationships, everybody's baptism by fire, right? So we didn't have any formal education. Here we are on the back end, understanding that inside of the US 50% of the marriages end inside of divorce. Inside of the minority community, it's 70%. So we have to really look at this. You line up 10 Black couples, statistically line up 10 Black couples, 7 of them statistically don't make it. We can throw out tonight's whole conversation, and we have to now ask, why is that? 7 out of 10 don't make it. And it's 50% just period. And inside of the Black community, we're always going to be a higher issue than whatever everybody else deals with. So we have to begin to peel back the onion of just saying that if we're going to sign up for commitment, if we're going to sign up for forever, there's a due diligence that has to be done during, post. All of that's necessary. And you can throw out Giovanni. You can throw out, throw out Vonnie. Giovanni. I gave you a whole new name. We can throw out Vonnie. We can throw out Elam. We can throw out Kelly. You got to do some work, because the stats right now show, for those that are married or want to get married, that it might not work. And so I always like to share with people, if you're about to play, if you played a sport and you're about to go up against the team that is the most difficult, how do you practice 2-3 weeks before? You don't practice the same way that you do just regularly. You turn it up a little bit. There is a responsibility that comes with being inside of a committed relationship, inside of being married. And if you're not willing to do it, it's okay. If you just want to have somebody that just wants to clean your pipes, that's fine. Men, if you just want to go out here and sew yourself, that's fine. But if you want to, well, that's fine within your space. But if you really want to be in a committed relationship, it is work. Okay. Hopeless romantic people, you get on my nerves, right? Because it's really work behind this thing, right? And y'all just be shedding all this other stuff. It shouldn't have to be that hard. It's hard. Okay. Being wealthy is hard. It's not easy, right? But being poor is actually difficult too. People just don't understand that either. So just At the end of the day, I appreciate you, Kelly, for just even having this platform, for giving individuals an opportunity of just learning. If we could just have affected 2 or 3 people tonight, I feel like that this is absolutely amazing. And so you can follow me at Elam B. King on all platforms. And just thank you so much, Kelly, for just having me just on this forum tonight.
Thank you both. And I think the podcast will pick up a few of both of your books and we'll give away because we've got folks that leave voicemails and different things. I like for folks, if you listen to the podcast all the way through, leave us a voicemail. In the show notes, there's a platform. All you have to do is click on that link. It'll take you directly to a web page. You don't even have to pick up your phone to make a call. You can record your voicemail there. Let us know what you thought about this discussion. And if you're the first few folks, let's call it 10, because I'll get 5 and 5. We'll have 5 copies of Vonnie's book and 5 of Elam's, and we'll shoot those out to you. But we do want to hear from you. Let us know what you think and some areas that perhaps we didn't cover that you may have questions about. We only asked 5 questions tonight. So I know there are a lot more questions in these relationships and things that we can help you do. But I'm looking forward to having both of these folks back. There's a lot of value tonight. I would say listen to the podcast more than once because a lot of times you hear something differently the second time around. Thank you, Ms. Gathers. Thank you, Mr. King, for your time. And thank you for your energy. Podcast guys, if you haven't done so already, please go ahead and subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks, and we will talk to you soon. All righty. Guys, thanks a lot. I know it's like tomorrow, but
we went in tonight. I saw that.
Yeah.
Great discussion.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. I really appreciate your time.
You gonna break this up into like 2 parts or 3 parts, or what do you think? Or you just gonna have a whole joint or what?
On my podcast, I'm gonna put it all in. But on the YouTube channel, I may break it up. I'll send it to both of you guys, and you guys can do however you like to do, whatever you like to do. I'll send you the audio file and the video file. I know, Elam, you and I are having some issue with the video piece, but let me know how you want it, what format you need it in to be embedded in your website, and we'll make sure we get it. You guys are welcome to cut it up and do whatever you need to do.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kelly.
Well, thank you. It's good to see. I'm looking forward to seeing you actually laying hands on you at some point. I know it's see over the screen, but yes. I'm going to be back up that way.
I have to dig in my box of pictures and find the picture I have of you from way back in the day with your low cut waves and
wasn't that the day?
Yeah, that was all you.
My son. The picture you sent me.
Yeah,
I think I took the picture on your mom's porch.
Really?
Where I had the blue jean jacket on. The one you sent me. When we first reconnected.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
My son that's at Georgia Tech now, he said, "Dad, is this you?" I said, "Okay, first of all, you don't have to sound like that." I said, "Yes, he's me." He says, "I didn't know you looked like that." I was like,
That's so funny.
And I'm one of those people with pictures. I'm a pack rat, so I'm pretty sure I have it somewhere.
Hey,
I have the cheerleading picture. That's how I called you that day, because I was like, I know this girl.
That is hilarious. Okay.
Hey, Vonnie, is your book on Audible?
No, I need to get it on Audible because I have people.
I still want to support. So I still want if you want to, Kelly, if you could just shoot me her information, or if you can text Kelly the link and you can send it to me or whatever. We'll definitely want to support. It's just going to take me about 6 months to read your book. So because I'm not to sit down. I would not have read my own book if I didn't put it on Audible. I promise. I am not to sit down after like 3 minutes. I'm like that.
Oh Lord. Okay.
Well, you can drop the links in the in that group chat that we have. Just drop those links there.
Oh yeah. If you want,
I have both of your contact information. Anything additional that you want me to put in the show notes, you can add it there. The cool thing about that is the show just stays out there. So whether it's 30 days or 330 days, your information will always be out there. Just whatever the best contact information, we'll make sure we put it in the show notes, and we'll also put it on our Facebook page, and I'll tag it so it'll stay at the top. And so those are the 2 things we can do.
That's my number, real quick, Vonnie. So if you want to text that to me, or
Oh,
you can just
cool. Okay,
follow
yeah.
me. You can follow me at Elam B King, either or. You can drop it there.
Yeah,
The
I
link.
can do
As a
all
matter of fact, just
that.
you. Are you on Instagram?
I am.
So drop me the link to Elam B King, and that'll
Okay,
make it easier.
gotcha.
So yeah,
Are you
definitely.
not
I can
an
follow
iPhone
you too.
user?
Huh?
Are you not an iPhone user?
No, ma'am. I don't do that stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we didn't bring it up during the
That's a whole
podcast.
other conversation.
I
Kelly
won't
gonna go
hold that
in.
against you.
I don't do y'all people. I don't do y'all. I don't do
keep
God.
him
Well,
keep him
you know
lifted.
me, I'm looking for the
I keep you
Kelly, I'm looking for the blue tick and I'm not seeing it.
Yeah,
Like,
he
really?
makes our chat group green. Yes, he makes our chat group green. Yeah. But
Oh, look at
It's so
you.
funny.
I love
yeah,
it. Yes, I'll definitely
That is
I
so
would love
funny.
to even
yeah, and
connect
you know
to
the other thing, both of you guys have a really big audience, a really dedicated group. I mean, Vonnie travels around; she talks to groups of women like crazy, and she's got a really great following. So I know both of you
Okay.
guys can probably collaborate on your own
Absolutely.
and share some resources and some networks and expand your basis.
yeah,
So let's
Okay.
get busy doing that too.
yeah.
Okay.
I do
Perfect.
more on Facebook than Insta, even though I know it should be the opposite.
Hmm.
But I'm 51, so that's been a learning curve that I've had
You
to
good?
yeah, slowly get
Mm.
used to. But look at me I'm all over your page now. Okay.
Nah, please say no. If you follow me, and I can definitely make sure I do the same with you
Yeah,
as well.
I
But yeah,
did. I
I
did.
definitely want to get your book because
Yeah,
but this book I'm telling you right here, but like
yeah,
both of
I'll
y'all,
have to take a look
yo,
at that.
this right here is a beast, and I've been working with this lady. Now this is a amazing Caucasian woman that gets
Okay.
it.
Oh, I
Wow.
saw that live the other day. I saw it when
Yeah.
you went live with her. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
man,
Okay.
she is amazing. She's a neuropsychiatrist for 30 years.
I
I
love
mean,
it.
she breaks it all the way down. So the male brain and the female brain I read like 4 years ago, and I was like, oh my God, this woman's amazing. And then she just
Mm,
dropped this book, and this is basically for the menopause areas, but
yeah.
it goes for I didn't realize that it really kind of starts at 35.
Hmm. It can.
You know what I'm saying? And so no, like the pre stuff
Right.
starts there.
Right.
And so the years of people not wanting to, the pushback that men are getting, it's got a lot to do with hormones, and we
That's what
don't
I said. It's
understand
not
it. We
that
don't
I'm
understand it.
attracted or I don't want you. It's hormonal. Like I'm
It's
just
a
not.
whole different. I was just like, man, it's so, and I'm only 40% through this book. See how thick it is? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
thick, but I got the audio on yeah, I got the audio there. I got the book. She sent this to me for free.
Oh wow, cool.
So yeah, so she's been like number one on Amazon for like the past 10 years. She's a beast. But yeah, so just
I just dropped it in my cart.
yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
So she's just looking at all the research.
All right, guys.
All
Again,
right.
thank you.
Yeah,
And if we
thank
don't
you.
talk, y'all have a good weekend, a safe weekend, and I'll have this information out to you. I'm probably going to post it to our site tomorrow or Saturday, probably tomorrow, but I
Okay.
won't do the video probably until Monday or so. I'll probably sit around on the porch Monday and do it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Good to
Thank
meet
you.
you, Vonnie. Thank you so
Good to
much for
meet
your
you as
wisdom. I look
well.
forward to be
Yes.
back on here as well. So yeah, we might
Looking
have to do some
forward to
things
great
together.
things. Yeah, looking forward to great things. All right, y'all. Have
All
a good
right.
weekend.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All
Talk to
All
you
right.
soon.
All